Hey guys, so it's been a little while since I updated you. It's now April 3rd. So the last time I updated you, I was just going into Girl Forgotten by April Henry. I ended up giving that 3.5 stars. It wasn't as good as Playing with Fire, and the premise just didn't live up to other books that were really similar. Then after that, I went and binge read Blue Moon, which is the 8th book in the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series, which I'm buddy reading over on Discord. I gave that 4.25 stars. This month it's going to be a whirlwind with that series because I'm at book 9 now, which is Obsidian Butterfly, and I need to completely read books 9 through 13. So by the end of this month I have to have finished book 13, Micah, because that is where the group is at and I'm behind. It's going to be a lot of that. Then I switched it up and I switched over to a manga, and I read Oyasumi Bunbun Volume 1, or to give it its English title, Goodnight Bunbun. And I gave that 5 stars. It was amazing. I see why so many people have been raving about the series. 2 comments I had with it though is the art style felt more horror than slice of life contemporary, even though there are some dark themes, and there wasn't really anything in the book that warranted the 18 plus explicit sticker, although I have heard that the series does earn that later on, so I will be reading that series. Then I went back to 2 series that have been ongoing for a while and knocked a couple more books off in them. So I read Twisted Fate by Mary Lynn Julin. I read Begin Again last month by her. This one, not quite as good, but good in different ways, if that makes sense. I didn't give it as high a rating, I only give it 4.5 instead of 4.75 that I gave Begin Again. Begin Again was second chance romance, really sweet. This one was more friends to lovers, but they aren't really friends. They kind of meet on this cookery course and start talking, and yeah. So, don't know what really to categorise that, but I did really enjoy it, especially the characters, and I wish it'd been a bit more fleshed out. And then I returned to the One Night series by Dana Sally. Last month I read the entirety of the Nick and Holly series and I loved it, and I have read Games We Play before a few times, but I never continued with the series, so I reread Games We Play, which was the last book I read in March, and I gave that 4.25 stars. Then so far in April I have read 2 books, which were Secrets We Hunt and Burdens We Carry by Dana Sally, and they both got 4.5 stars. So the only one I have left in that that's currently out is Desires We Seek, so that will be on my TBR for this month. I know I've already put a TBR video, but that's getting switched up all the time because I am a mood reader. So Desires We Seek is on there. The Destroy My TBR Book Club's pick for this month is The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell, which I'm not keen on because it's historical fiction, and me and historical fiction have a notorious relationship. And then obviously Obsidian Butterfly, which I have started. I have a feeling it's not going to be my favourite book in the series because Edward is involved, and if you've read the series, Edward is a really hit or miss character. Like, when he turns up in fights, he's brilliant, but he's not the most endearing character, and there's quite a few other characters that I'd rather be seeing more of, not just the love interests in Jean-Claude and Richard, but I'd like to see more of Asher, more of Damien, more of Nathaniel, and the other shifters, that are just more interesting to follow. So don't know how that's going to go. I am reading that on my iPad, which I'm filming on, so I won't have any footage of me actually reading it, so this segment will just cut to my next update in that. But I do have a lot of physical books on my TBR, which you saw in my TBR video. And then we have the 2 picks from the TBR jar, which were The Bone Cries Moon and Iron Hearts and Dragon Magic, which is the sequel to something Death Magic. I can never remember the first part of that. It's something Hearts and Death Magic, by Daylight though. Really enjoyed the first one. Can't wait to get into the second one. I have this notorious habit with duologies and series where I just like read the first book, really enjoy it, and I don't read anything else. I also plan to at least catch up with another series this month, and that one is going to be, well, 2 main series. One is the Entwined With Me series, the Crossfire series by Sylvia Day. I am going to be reading Entwined With You this month, and then I only have 2 books left in that, and I've completed the series, which is one of my goals this year, is to complete more series, because I have nearly 60 series that I'm currently reading, and some of them are quite long, like the Anita Blake series, the Vampire Chronicles, the Expanse are all very long. The Expanse is 10 plus, and then the Vampire Chronicles is 13, and Anita Blake by the end of this year will have 30 books. So yeah, but the other series I need to pick up and finish, because I bought the next 3 books, is the Dune series, because I read Dune, Dune Messiah and Children of Dune last year, and I really enjoyed all of them. And then I went and bought The God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, and Chapter House Dune, which are books 4 to 6. And then I do own Kindle editions of some of the other books in the Dune universe. So that is well on my TBR. Plus, I also bought more books, which I need to not do, because at the minute I am completely overrun. I will do a bookshelves tour at some point when I've got the house to myself, just to have the quiet to do it. But I have a small shelf in my room, and then I've got 2 big IKEA bookshelves downstairs that are double stacked and full. So yeah. So I think that's it for now. I've caught you up. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to Obsidian Butterfly and try and finish that in the next day or 2, so that I can get into Narcissus in Chains and Incubus Dreams, which are 2 books I'm really looking forward to hopefully read Micah by the end of the month and catch up with my group. But even if I'm only 1 or 2 books behind, I can catch up next month. But I do need to get to around book 10 or 11, preferably 11, because that gives me less to do. So I'm going to do that, and I will check back in when I have an update for you. Hey guys, so since the last time I spoke to you, not too much reading update wise. I read a graphic novel, Parasocial by Alex de Campi. It was okay, not amazing, but okay. Wasn't horror, wasn't really a thriller either. It was a bit strange to read, but I did make quite a bit of progress in Obsidian Butterfly. I'm now a quarter of the way through that, and it's starting to pick up a bit. So you've got Anita helping Edward, who's using his other identity, Ted, to solve a bunch of crimes.
What are you doing with him?
I'm filming.
Oh.
solving these murders that have been happening, but we don't know what it is. Anita has no idea. Edward has no idea. So she's now met Edward's other two backups, and she's getting along swimmingly with one. The other one hates her guts purely because she's a woman. In between this, they've also got a group of human bad guys that are targeting Donna and her children because of just her protesting and stuff like that. The children are not really fussed on. Becca is 6, so she does things 6-year-olds do. But Peter is more interesting, being 14. He really dislikes Edward, but he gets on pretty well with Anita, so I'm excited to see where that dynamic kind of goes and what's actually going to happen later on. Guys, so I'm another book down today, graphic novel called Queer in Asia, and essentially you're following Tian, a Chinese man in his mid to late 20s, basically as a gay man in China. It doesn't really focus too much on the sexuality aspect because Tian's already quite comfortable there. He knows who he is and is fine expressing himself. It's more about interpersonal connections as a minority. So he spends a lot of time being introspective and looking back on his life and his decisions and his relationships with friends, strangers, lovers, family, and thinking about things he could have done differently, what he couldn't have changed, and what he's going to do going forward. And I actually really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.25 stars. And now that might sound low to some people, but I did have a few issues with it. One was it didn't really focus on his sexuality, and it didn't have to be like this journey of self-discovery and like coming out as gay and being accepted as gay. It could have just been about relationships. Like, we know he has a lot of relationships. He's got 2 exes he talks about frequently. He is dating someone at the beginning of the book, and it would have been nice to have a bit more depth to those relationships, especially when Tian's looking back on them. It would have been nice to have more depth and just more context around the relationships. And then I had an issue with the art style. So at times it looked really weird and everything was really out of proportion. And like, manga artists do this. Like, Junji Ito is notorious for blowing out proportions, but he mainly deals in almost Lovecraftian horror and liminal horror, so it makes sense for him to do that. In essentially what's a contemporary graphic novel, it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, there are scenes when Tian is drunk or high and everything goes a bit, technical and neon, almost like all over the place. Then it makes sense for things to be out of proportion because it's visually portraying how they see in the world in that moment, but most of the time it didn't need to be that way, especially when there were spreads and backgrounds that were absolutely gorgeous to look at. Any scenes where they're like driving or it's nighttime are absolutely beautiful, so I had issues with that. But the story, the characters, they were really great. They were really relatable in this situation, so even though this is a gay man telling a story, I really sympathise with him because as someone in their mid-20s, I understood a lot of the stuff he was going through with, like, university, living on his own, having to, look after his own house, and it gets messy and not wanting to do anything. So I kind of really empathize with him in that perspective. I'm now reading another graphic novel, which is an anthology of queer short stories, but in graphic novel format. So, and that's called My Monster Girlfriend. So I'm currently reading that, and then I will be going back to Obsidian Butterfly, and trying to finish that off today or tomorrow. So I'll keep you informed. Hey guys, so I'm another couple of days in. I did finish My Monster Girlfriend. I gave that 4.25 stars. Really good. There were a couple of stories I wasn't too keen on. But I didn't go back to Obsidian Butterfly after that. I actually read a manga, Terror Man Volume 1 by Dong Han, which essentially is like, if you've seen Terror in Resonance, it's a pretty similar premise, only instead of being an actual terrorist, the main character is pretending to be one to save people. Really dark, has some elements of superpower, but it's more about this one young boy's struggle between being seen as a terrorist and evil person trying to kill people when actually he's doing the exact opposite, as well as him dealing with the actual terrorists out there. And then I read Greedy as a Ghoul by Casey Sutton, which is a short story to a series that's starting this summer, Malthus Necromancer Unchained, which is grimdark fantasy, something I really enjoy and been out of touch with for a while now. Like, I do want to get back into the First Law universe, which is grimdark, and get back into that, but I kind of fell out of it for a bit. And now I'm reading Nipponia Nippon by Kazushige Abe, which essentially follows this young man who is obsessed with the Japanese crested ibis, which is scientifically named Nipponia Nippon. So he's obsessed with these birds and he wants to free them because he thinks people don't appreciate them, even though the only ones, hey babe, the only ones currently alive, and the other one, hello, in Japan are ones in conservation breeding programs. So even though I wouldn't call him completely unhinged, he does have a very obsessive personality that's leading him down quite a dark path. I didn't mention it, but Terror Man I gave 5 stars, and Greedy as a Ghoul I gave 4 stars. So it's shaping up to be a really good month so far. So I'm halfway through Nipponia Nippon. I will finish that today. It's only 160 pages. And then I am going to read immediately after that the graphic novel adaptation of Kafka on the Shore, because I want to read Kafka and a lot of other Japanese literature works, but it seems like a bit of a headbender. So when I saw the graphic novel, I thought I'll try that, and if I really enjoy that, then I will read the actual novel. So I'll be going straight into Kafka after that, and then I will be returning to my goal of finishing books from last month or the month before that I started and haven't finished. I have already checked one of those off, and that was The Autistic Brain by Temple Grandin. I finally finished that after starting it in like February. I blame the ADHD brain. And I also have currently started Obsidian Butterfly and Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. I am 25% of the way through both of those. So after Kafka, those two become a priority. And then I also have The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell, because that is my reading club's book of the month. So I need to read that. And then the other two that I have that I really need to prioritize this month are Desires We Seek by Dana Sally, which is currently the last book in the One Night series that's out. There are more coming, but that's the last one that's out. And Entwined With You by Sylvia Day, which is the third book in the Crossfire series, which I'm attempting to finish this year. After reading the first one like 6 years ago, so we'll be attempting to do that. One cat. There's another one just off camera, right here. Okay, babe. Oh, you can see her. Come in. Here she is. You can just about see her. This is the shy one. So yeah, that is my plan right now. Hey, babe. But I also have quite a few other books I do want to get to this month, namely the ones that were on my April TBR, which currently sat on my shelf here, staring at, because I've read a lot of other things this month that I wasn't supposed to be reading. So I will be reading Kafka after Nippon, finishing Obsidian Butterfly and Meddling Kids, and then the two others, plus what was on my April TBR, is my goal for the rest of the month. So I'm hoping if I can finish Nippon, Kafka, Obsidian Butterfly and Meddling Kids by the 15th, so that's 3-ish books when you take off what I've already read of some of them in 5 days, and then I have the rest of the month to focus on what was actually on my TBR. Most of them I do have audiobooks for, so I will have some footage of me actually reading pretty soon. But yeah, I'll check back in with you once I've finished Nippon and Kafka, because they're both pretty short, and then we'll be going back into the stuff that I started to read and stopped. So I'll speak to you in a bit.